From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
Good Thursday morning. It's 5 o'clock. Welcome to Montana This Morning. I'm Victoria Hill. Thank you so much for starting your day with us. We have the latest out of Washington, D.C., where Congress has affirmed President-elect Joe Biden's victory in the 2020 election. After protesters breached the Capitol, delaying the process, the official announcement had to be made earlier this morning.
The votes for President of the United States are as follows. Joseph R. Biden, Jr. of the state of Delaware has received 306 votes. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 232 votes.
Early this morning, President Donald Trump publicly acknowledged that he would leave office on January 20th, pledging an orderly transfer of power. And the Capitol is secure this morning, but at least 4 people are dead after hundreds of protesters stormed the halls of the iconic American building, demanding the election results be changed. Supporters of President Trump pushed through barriers along the perimeter of the Capitol, where Congress was in session. Lawmakers were voting to certify the election results, which the protesters believe was stolen. The demonstrators tussled with officers in full riot gear who were deploying pepper spray. And as you can see here, many got inside the building. One woman was shot and killed during the riots. And this is video from the scene of the shooting outside the Speaker's lobby. Law enforcement officials say a police officer appeared to fire the gun. And these are just some of the surreal photos taken from inside the Capitol as rioters found their way inside offices and onto the Senate floor. House and Senate leadership were taken to undisclosed locations during the raid. At least 52 people were arrested, many for gun violations. Police also found pipe bombs at the DNC and RNC, along with a long gun and Molotov cocktails on the Capitol grounds. Well, now it's time we turn our attention to weather. Miller joins us here. What's going on this Thursday? And I have to say thank you, because yesterday I joked with you, can we get 40 degrees overnight? And on my way here, my car said it was 39. Close enough. So thank you, Miller.
Well, how about this? What if I told you we hit 50 yesterday?
Oh, we did.
You excited about that at the airport? Yeah. Now, it's not going to happen the next couple of days, but we could see more 50s in our future. We'll tell you more about that in just a bit. Let's take a look at those temperatures that Victoria was talking about. We're at 36 right now at the airport. Winds out of the west at about 14 miles an hour. So take a live look at the Stockman Bank weather cam downtown. Looking pretty good right now. There's that high, Victoria. We hit 50, a good 14 degrees above average. Our overnight lows above average as well. Only got down to 22 yesterday, but a little warmer out there this morning. Top gusts yesterday of about 29 miles an hour. Should not have to worry about those winds today. The big story today as we wake up, we're looking for the possibility of snow. You can see some white stuff on the board already as we take a look at the Defender Doppler. You can see some snow mixing in off to our west as we zoom on in, coming into Yellowstone County. We do have a little bit of snow, and as we go along today, that is going to transition to rain because it's going to warm up this afternoon, warmer than it needs to be to get the snow, but it will try to transition back down into snow later tonight as those temperatures cool right back down. We're looking at maybe less than half an inch here in Billings, but areas east, we could see some pockets of anywhere from 1 to 4 inches of snow. So this morning through tomorrow morning, just watch out as you're driving into work and school. The roads could be kind of slick, but hey, the weekend looks pretty good. We'll take a look at that coming up.
All right, we always have the weekend working for us. Thank you so much, Miller. Okay. Back to news. Lawmakers say they want to investigate the police response to the protests. The chairwoman of the House Administration Committee says it raises grave security concerns as to how a mob was able to occupy and vandalize the building. She says the committee will work with House and Senate leaders to review Capitol Police preparedness. 14 officers were hurt. The Secret Service is ramping up security at the White House, Naval Observatory, and Secret Service headquarters. That's out of concern rioters will disperse to other areas of D.C. and potentially incite more violence after being removed from the Capitol. President Trump fired off a series of tweets standing by his belief that the election was stolen. Twitter has flagged and removed several of his most recent posts for being non-factual. Many are criticizing his message to protesters, saying it didn't condemn the actions strongly enough.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you.
And new this morning, a key White House figure has resigned in the wake of these riots. The White House Deputy National Security Advisor, Matt Pottinger, is stepping down from his post. His resignation comes in response to President Trump's reaction to the violence. Pottinger is not alone in rethinking his position at the White House. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien and Deputy Chief of Staff Chris Liddell are also considering resignation. President-elect Joe Biden also addressed the nation, calling the actions of the protesters an assault on democracy and insurrection.
Today's reminder, a painful one, that democracy is fragile, and to preserve it requires people of goodwill, leaders with the courage to stand up.
Montana's congressional delegation is reacting to yesterday's events. Senator John Tester lashed out at Republicans, blaming them for going along with what he called the false notion that the election was marred by fraud.
Those are my colleagues who invited this chaos onto our country. I would just say you have inflicted grave harm on our democracy for your own political gain. And the fact is they've enabled violence to enter the front doors of our United States Capitol.
Tester's Montana counterpart in the Senate, Republican Steve Daines, decided against objecting to the results after previously announcing he would do so. But he admitted he still has questions about the legitimacy of the election.
No doubt there's fraud. There is fraud. We're continuing to investigate fraud in states. The question is, do you have overwhelming evidence where the documented fraud that's irrefutable exceeds the difference of Biden's victory in these respective states? And there have been nearly 80 court cases that have been decided against the Trump campaign. But I've been in active contact with President Trump's campaign to get all the evidence and the facts. And to this point, I did not see enough irrefutable facts and data that would suggest there were votes here that would overturn the electors of these states.
The chaos on Capitol Hill is sparking condemnation from leaders around the world. CBS's Tina Krause is in London with the reaction.
The violence at the U.S. Capitol dominated newscasts across the globe. Tweets from world leaders flooded social media. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson tweeting disgraceful scenes in U.S. Congress. NATO's Secretary General said the outcome of this democratic election must be respected. America's allies called it an assault on democracy.
I feel terribly for what's happening there. I really do. I mean, they are one of our closest friends and partners, the United States.
Germany's foreign minister took aim at President Trump, tweeting he and his supporters should finally accept the decision of the American voters and stop trampling on democracy. In Tokyo, a group of pro-Trump activists marched in support of the American president, while the Japanese government said it still hoped the U.S. would have a peaceful and democratic transfer of power. Tina Krause, CBS News, London.
The Chinese government says it hopes the American people can enjoy peace, stability, and security as soon as possible. The Senate will be controlled by the Democratic Party moving forward. In the Georgia Senate runoff elections, Democrat Jon Ossoff is the projected winner against Republican incumbent David Perdue. Ossoff and Raphael Warnock's victories give the Democrats control of the Senate. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, who will also be president of the Senate, will cast the tie-breaking vote. Turning to court news now, almost 2 years after she was last seen, 2 women are facing charges in connection to the disappearance of 8-year-old Mildred Oldcrow. Veronica Dust and Rosine Lincoln Old Crow both appeared in Bighorn County District Court Tuesday on charges of endangering the welfare of a child. A missing endangered person advisory was issued for Mildred this past November. The last time she was seen was in March of 2019. The women were arrested last month in Billings as fugitives from justice on warrants by the Crow tribe. The warrants state Dust and Lincoln Old Crow failed to produce the child, nor was any proof of life provided. The whereabouts of Mildred is still unknown to this day. During their arraignments on Tuesday, their bonds were set at $1,000, and both women posted bail Wednesday afternoon. They now have 3 days to appear in Crow Tribal Court. Any future arrest or new charges depend on the tribal court and investigation by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. A Montana House committee held its first hearing on a bill to expand where and how people can carry weapons, including on college campuses. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian reports on what the bill would.
On Wednesday morning, the House Judiciary Committee heard testimony on a bill intended to remove some of the restrictions on where Montanans can carry guns. House Bill 102, sponsored by Representative Seth Bergley of Joliet, would allow people to carry concealed firearms without a permit in most places. Those with a concealed weapons permit would be allowed to carry in some additional places, including state and local government offices and restaurants and other businesses that serve alcohol. Supporters said they wanted to limit gun-free zones, arguing the restrictions weren't keeping people safe.
It has no force against somebody who seeks to do wrong. It's only inhibiting the people that are law-abiding, that have the ability and the right to defend themselves or others from harm.
One of the things we go after the most are felons in possession of firearms. And we arrest and we indict multiple of them. I'm going to tell you this, we haven't run into one yet carrying a concealed weapon permit.
The bill would also limit the Montana university system's ability to regulate firearms on college campuses. Campuses would not be allowed to restrict someone's right to have a gun, but they could, for example, require it be kept in a holster. Opponents questioned whether more guns were needed on campus and said that might be a security risk.
There are substantially more instances of accidental shootings, misfires, and other dangerous mishaps with guns than there are of guns being the reasonable solution to any problems on campus.
Campus colleges are simply not equipped to provide that same level of safety for employees or students.
The chair of the House Judiciary Committee said they'll likely take action on the bill next week. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
The bill's sponsor says it serves as a next step after Montana voters approved a ballot measure last year that limited local restrictions on firearms. And now to the latest on the pandemic. As the post-holiday COVID-19 surge continues and vaccines slowly roll out, health officials say a new threat is identified in South Africa. CNN's John Lawrence reports.
The United States' battle against COVID-19 is far from over.
It's not a home run yet because we don't really have the kinds of drugs where you give it that can stop the virus in its tracks.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's ensemble forecast projects as many as 438,000 people in the U.S. could die from COVID-19 by the end of the month. Some Nevada funeral homes are running out of space to store bodies and are using refrigerated trailers.
It's unfortunate. It's something that I never would ever have believed in my career I would ever have to be dealing with this.
CDC officials say a variant of the virus, first found in the UK, has infected at least 52 people in the US.
What it does, according to the Brits, is that it makes it easier for the virus to spread from person to person. So it is a virus that is in many respects more transmissible.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, is also concerned about another version of the virus, first identified in South Africa, which may lessen the effectiveness of COVID-19 antibody treatments.
It is a little bit more complicated because some of those mutations might have a negative impact on the efficacy of some of the monoclonal antibodies that are used.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
The U.S. rose above 21 million known infections and at least 131,000 people are hospitalized. As the post-holiday surge continues, officials are trying to speed up the pace of vaccinations.